Yes! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you've reached the MMA Lock-Cast episode 55, and this is Big Rob, and the rest is from my buddy Manpreet, because I've just been talking about totally talking out of my ass.
Welcome to another episode of the MMA Lock-Cast. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOTN. This week we are back for UFC Copenhagen, their first ever event in Denmark, headlined by a huge Danish fighter in Jack Hermansson, and he's taking on Jared Cannonier, who's coming off a big victory over Anderson Silva last time around. But we're going to be doing the casuals this week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have a video to show them because I got to move things along a little bit. But
that's all right.
You guys saw me announce this on Twitter a little bit earlier this week. I did propose to my girlfriend / fiance.
Yeah.
Your man is hitched now. Is it?
Oh!
Is it? Are you hitched once you become actually married, or hitched once you propose?
Buddy.
What would you go with? What would you say?
Right from the start.
As soon as the ring goes on the finger, you're hitched?
I agree.
You're hitched?
It's
all
the
right.
intention. It's like so solid.
Yeah.
Yep. You got it.
All right. So I'm hitched. I guess
You're
you guys
hitched,
can
brother.
I am hitched. Yeah. The funny thing is, I came to Rob's place today, and it wasn't even on my mind. Like, it wasn't one of the first things I even told him. Like, no, honestly, we talked earlier this week just to schedule the podcast, which is why it's coming out on a Wednesday, maybe Thursday now. But, I told him. And it did not even cross my mind to say anything to him because
it didn't even cross my mind until you told me right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like having this realization where I'm like, damn, I should have got you a gift or something, or I'm having like second.
It's not like that,
dude. I'm so happy for you.
That's
such an important part of your life.
Yeah. It happened on Saturday. I think I got all of it out of my system on the Sunday, which is why by Monday I was just like,
congrats, man.
We cool, it happened.
Yeah.
My girlfriend is not my fiance. I gotta keep fucking.
She's so awesome.
I gotta keep fucking correcting myself.
Great.
I'm so used to saying girlfriend. I gotta say fiance now.
No, you gotta do it proper. You gotta
I guess if you just go with my girl,
respect,
right? If you say my girl, it's still like girl is the encapsulation of
girl's okay, but
wifey, fiance, girlfriend.
Wifey's okay. Wifey's a lot of respect right there.
Yeah. Somebody actually even commented on that tweet that I sent out. They're like, you should have her on the Lock-Cast in one of the episodes. I'm like, I don't know how much you'll really have to add in terms of the content, in terms of MMA itself, but maybe I can get her in on the casual segment one time as well.
It might be fun.
She has her favorite in Ioane and Jacek. That's her favorite fighter.
Oh,
but so I teased it.
I did not know.
I teased it. The next time she fights, maybe I'll have her on the episode just as the casuals, and we can go over one of Ioane's past demolishments. So
hey, we got an extra seat right here. We got,
exactly.
The couch has 2 seats.
All right, perfect.
We'll get her
on the next fucking.
All right,
well, not the next episode, but the next time Ioane fights, which is actually I think
fair enough. That's
end
totally fair
of
enough.
October. So maybe end of October. That's right.
Okay.
That might be my birthday episode as well.
That is true.
October 22nd. So we'll see how it fucking goes along.
Okay, cool, man.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that with you, Big Rob. I just wanted you on the episode.
Thank
but
you.
Unfortunately, I don't have anything to show you this week, so we're just going to fucking roll on with the card. Appreciate you as always. You're the best, Big Rob. All right.
Thank you.
Let's fucking get into the last card that we actually had, which was UFC Mexico City. That card, unfortunately, was marred by a very unfortunate ending in the main event, with it only going 15 seconds. You get a quick eye poke. A lot of people are going to say Jeremy Stephens posted out. I am not one of those. So that's the most I'm going to say on it, because people are harping on this shit for so long. I saw one of my guys on Twitter tweet out, this is the longest people have ever talked about a 15-second fight. That ended in a no contest nonetheless. So it's very inconclusive. But let's get into the actual breakdown of the bets. I ended up on the night very minimally in a profit, plus 0.04 units. And that was also the factor of 2 bets that ended up being pushes. So let's get into that right now. First off, I had an under 2.5 0.5 unit bet at plus 201 odds on Martin Bravo against Steven Peterson. I was kind of surprised to see this above plus 200. You may see decisions a lot on these guys' records, but if you really watch the way they fight, just like I said in the last podcast, you know that these guys are bangers. These guys love to throw on the feet, so there's always a possibility of a finish. A lot of people are saying that Steven Peterson doesn't really have knockout power, but when you match it up against a guy like Martin Bravo that's willing to engage in the stand up and get a little bit wacky at times, and also has gotten knocked out in the most recently as well. You gotta kind of take it, especially under 2.5. They're giving you all that time. They're giving you 12.5 minutes of a potential finish in a fight where both guys like to strike and come forward. So I thought it was almost, it was as straightforward as possible for me to take an underdog bet on that. Again, just as I say every fucking weekend when I hit a bet, I wish I put a little bit more on it just due to how confident I felt in it. Next up is a fight doesn't go to decision prop that I lost on. Kind of a similar situation. This fight did mainly take place on the feet. Sergio Pettis and Tyson Nam. I had 0.5 units at plus 230 odds on the fight doesn't go to decision. There were plenty of opportunities for a finish. Just did not transpire. Just based on the fact how these guys were fighting as well. So unfortunate L there. Next up, another L was Carlos Huachin. I had him straight at 1.5 units at plus 133, and then I had a 0.5 unit stab at plus 320 odds for him to win inside the distance. I thought that he was going to be able to outstrike Jose Quinones here. Maybe not outstrike him, but at least land the big enough bombs to hurt Quinones and then finish him. However, Quinones had a masterful performance himself, and he comes out with the victory there. So that's minus 2 units on that play, on those 2 plays put together. Next up was a parlay between Claudio Puelos, who went out there and did what he's supposed to do, except get the finish, which is what he should have. However, I parlayed it straight with Irina Aldana, and I ended up getting 1.7 odds on that, whatever the fuck that translated to. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think minus 142 or something like that. But I thought the fights played out exactly how I thought they would. Puelos was going to get this victory by grinding him out on the ground. I thought he was going to go for a submission or at least go for some sort of TKO, but he wasn't able to do that. And then Irina Aldana, winning the fight how I thought she would too, completely outstrike her opponent on the feet and get that victory. Next up, I had Ariane Carnelosi, 1.2 units at plus 123. I thought anybody against Angela Hill, who always makes her fights close, is worth the bet, especially at plus money. And a girl that has the style of Ariane, which is, the forward motion and relentless pressure. But Angela Hill cuts her up with that beautiful elbow and gets the stoppage victory there. I know a lot of people whiffed on the fight, goes to decision in that bet, or at least in that fight. So unfortunate for them. And then next up, let's go to the next 2 fights. I had a 1.25 unit bet at plus 107 on Carlos Esparza over Alexa Grasso. Super close fight, but I still had Carlos Esparza winning at least 2 of those rounds. And then we had my main play on Jeremy Stephens, 2 units. 2 units at minus, I can't remember what it was, minus 106, minus 107. We obviously know what happened in that. I also had it inside the distance 1 unit at plus 140 as well. I'm not sure why that's not showing up, but whatever. It would have been a push regardless. So like I said, we end up plus 0.4 units on the event. We just got to get back to work for this event. I already have a couple bets placed, which I will get into later in this card. Also, Bellator 228 going down this weekend. I'll make sure that I touch on those 2 fights as well between Juan Archuleta, Patricio Pitbull, and Giga Musashi versus Leo Machida. Not getting super deep into those, just quick thoughts as to why I bet them. But first, I actually want to get one thing that I did throw out there on Twitter is taking listener questions. I'm not trying to make a whole segment out of it per se, but I wouldn't mind answering specific questions that some people might have due to the fact that other people might want to actually hear the answer as well. So I had one of my dudes, I can't talk for some reason. It's kind of late. It's been a long day. Let's just put it that way. I'm gonna try not to yawn this whole fucking episode just for my man Kyle Marley, if he still watches the show. But I have my man at Craig Christ underscore. His Twitter handle currently is Spy Top Caller Clout Seeker. My fucking man right there. Always changing up his name. It's hilarious. But his question was, at what odds would you say At what odds would you say 100%, no matter how confident you are on someone, you cannot justify betting on them at all? One line that I had on my mind when I first started doing like this whole lock of the night thing is I would never want to wager, 5 units on anything worse than minus 350. For me, it's kind of just like a hypothetical number that I've thrown out there. I don't have specific reasoning as to why I have that. I have seen people out there make straight bets on people like, a minus 495 on Irina Adana. You just take a straight bet on them. People have their own justifications and reasoning as to why they have a specific number that they, cap at for odds. But in terms of my lock of the night plays, I don't want to go over minus 250. It's been a long time since I've bet anything over minus 300 straight. But there are definitely some spots where I could do that. I just want to give you guys a little bit more bang for your buck in terms of the better odds. I've been aiming for, things better than minus 250. It's very rarely that I'll go above minus 250 nowadays. I have for the upcoming Bellator card, but that is a prime example as to why I would bet over minus 250. But personally, if there's a spot where I'm like I gotta go balls deep, minus 350 is kind of my cutoff. It's different for everybody else. It depends on your bankroll as well. It depends on what you feel comfortable with. But if you want to be serious, I would set a cap for yourself, and my personal one is minus 350. I hope that helps, Craig. Thanks for the question. Hope to field it a little bit more in future episodes. So just hit me. I'll try to answer as best as I can, whether it pertains to a certain matchup on the card or if it's just a general question. I would be happy to answer it for you guys as best as I can. All right, let's get into the quick thoughts for UFC Copenhagen, which goes down this weekend. There's a lot of intriguing fights. Again, this is one of those MMA nerd questions, or at least my MMA nerd cards, I should say. If you're not really too deep into the UFC roster, you're not going to know a lot of these guys, but you know that in every matchup there's something, there's an intriguing ingredient as to why it could be a fun fight, or at least why you want to see this problem solved and kind of see it play out. The UFC arrival of Jack Shore, who's been a huge prospect in the Cage Warrior scene, a fun fight that should take place mainly on the feet between Marc Diakiese and Lando Vannata. Macy Chiasson returning. Should be a fun fight between Davis and Chikadze. Siyar Bahadurzada against Ismail. Naurdiev is going to be a fucking banger of a fight. Chirico and Makhmud. Cowboy Oliveira against Nicolas Dalby. I think that's a very fun fight as well. The return of Nicolas Dalby after getting cut. Ovince against the return of Lord Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Love that guy. Ian Cutelaba against Khalil Roundtree should be a very fun fight, depending on how Khalil Roundtree chooses to approach that fight. Gilbert Burns stepping in on short notice against Gunny Nelson. Very, very tough fight for Gunny Nelson. Surprised he took the fight. And we'll see if Gilbert Burns can continue the streak of, rattling off wins with super short notice. UFC debut of Marco Madsen against Danilo Belluardo, and then Jack Hermansson obviously in the main event against Jared Cannonier. Feeling a little gassy, I apologize, guys. All right. Jack Hermansson coming off that big victory over Jacare Souza, taking on Jared Cannonier. Rankings-wise, doesn't really make the most sense, but especially with Jack Hermansson coming off of a huge victory over Jacare. But he did want to headline this card in Denmark, and he wants to be kind of like a forefather of the Danish MMA scene. And I think this is a good opportunity for him to do that, and especially come out with a victory. So we'll get into that fight when I get down to that in the card. But let's just start off at the bottom of the card. Jack Shore against Nohelin Hernandez. Hernandez last time around fought Marlon Vera, had a decent performance. He pretty much got owned for that first round, was making a lot of mistakes on the ground. Luckily for him, Marlon Vera wasn't able to really latch onto a choke or any type of submission to finish that. And then in the second round, or at least near the ending of the first round and beginning of the second round, he was really having his way on the feet against Marlon Vera. Was landing very well. Eventually got this fight to the ground, and was doing good work from there. He eventually let Marlon Vera up, and something just switched, and Vera fucking started coming forward, landing big shots, started swarming Hernandez, landed a big knee, and then eventually tapped him out. Great performance by Marlon Vera. And one thing that was kind of concerning in that fight, for Nohelin coming into this fight with Jack Shore, he's really got to pull back on his leg kicks. I found that Marlon Vera was able to get him down with quite ease, with off of one of Nohelin's kicks, and I think that that's where Jack Shore really shines as well. He's really good at catching kicks and following up with takedowns, and once it gets to the ground, this guy's he's really good. He has a pretty decent takedown defense, or at least he's able to get back to his feet or find a reversal. But I don't think he's going to have to worry much about a takedown threat here from Nohelin Hernandez, nor do I think he has much to worry about once he gets to this fight to the ground, which I think he'll be able to with relative ease, I should say. I like Hernandez's striking, but I don't think it's enough to wear out or at least keep a Jack Shore back. The one thing about Jack Shore is he is kind of a slow starter. He did start pretty slow in his last fight against Scott Malone. And I think this time around with Hernandez, I think he's going to be able to go for the takedown relatively easy because Nohelin's going to throw one of those kicks. Jack Shore should be able to catch it, get the single leg takedown, and then kind of grind on Nohelin. Jack Shore's striking has kind of gotten better in his last couple fights. He's very quick with his hands. He still has to work on his combinations a little bit, but his 1-2 are very crisp and straight. I think he wins this fight mainly with his grappling. I think I'm going to say that he wins this fight via decision. Or at least, I'm going to say third round TKO. I think he wears out Nohelin, eventually gets him down in the third round, and then TKOs him. Would I bet him at the minus 170-ish range he's currently at? No. I have this thing about, UFC debuts. It kind of almost stung me last time around with Askar Askarov, so I'm not going to really bite the bullet this time around and get that UFC debut bet with Jack Shore, but I am picking him to win, and I am picking him to win by third round TKO. Next up, we got Lando Vannata versus Marc Diakiese. I do have a bet on this fight with Marc Diakiese, 2.5 units at minus 152. I think that's great value on a guy that I believe is leaps and bounds technically better than Lando Vannata on the feet, even though Lando is very, he's very smooth / crazy and wild with his strikes, and I think that a more composed Marc Diakiese is going to be able to chop down the lead leg of Lando Vannata, which he has shown great improvement in, especially in his last fight against Joe Duffy. I think we're going to see him kind of approach the fight the same way. Unlike a Nohelin Hernandez, I think Marc Diakiese does a lot better of a job bringing his feet back, or at least his kicks, bringing them back into his stance to avoid any takedowns off of kicks. We saw Lando Vannata really implement his ground game last time around against Marcos Mariano, in a guy that has horrible takedown defense and is easily able to get ridden out in most of his fights. And I think that was the easiest path to victory for Lando Vannata, who's coming off a rough stretch and miraculously got his UFC contract renewed, and then had that Marcos Mariano fight. But I think that he has a tough out here against Marc Diakiese. Lando Vannata, he showed a lot of promise in that Tony Ferguson fight, but you got to remember, Tony Ferguson is a very wild striker himself and leaves his chin exposed more often than not too. So Lando Vannata was able to land a couple of times, and I think that really exaggerated the value that he had coming into the UFC, which is why people were really high on him. And I think that his true form has really been showing in his last couple of fights. And I think that Marc Diakiese, overall the better fighter, is going to completely dismantle Lando Vannata and probably go for a decision victory. I think he plays it safe, chops down Lando Vannata's lead leg, and then eventually just continues to outpoint him on the feet for the rest of the fight. So I'm taking Marc Diakiese. I do have a bet on him at 2.5 units at minus 152. He is currently sitting at roughly around the minus 152-ish range. So I would highly bet him even up to like minus 170-ish, minus 175. I think he has a lot of value on him. So I'm taking Marc Diakiese by decision. Next up, we have Macy Chiasson against Lina Lansberg. I'm going to be quick about this fight. Macy Chiasson is looking like a wrecking ball her last couple fights. Against Sarah Moraes, she was kind of getting grinded out for roughly about 4 minutes. Then eventually got that reversal and then pounded on Sarah Moraes. Did not get to finish that round, but in the second round, she ended up finding the finish and completely destroying Sarah Moraes. This girl looks like she has a lot of potential. She's still very green, and I think that a fight against Lina Lansberg is kind of perfect for her in this time in her career. Should she be a minus 400 favorite? I don't think so. I think closer to minus 300, which is still a solid favorite, but I think that Lina Lansberg is going to have the veteran experience here over her, and a lot more she does have a lot more cage time. She's been in the tougher fights. She's had a lot more adversity, and I think that she's going to give Macy Chiasson the most adversity she's seen in her fights. However, I think Macy Chiasson still wins this with her strength, with her takedowns. Just she is so powerful in the clinch, and that's where Lina Lansberg does her best work as well. So as long as Macy Chiasson kind of tries to avoid the elbows as much as possible, because I really think that was a turning point in that Tanya Evinger fight. Once she really split up Evinger kind of seemed demoralized. She did come back and have a little bit of a decent showing in a little bit of that first half of that second round, but then Lina Lansberg was able to come back and turn the tide once again. I think that Macy Chiasson is going to be able to get a finish in this fight, probably second round submission, but I think it's going to be a little bit harder than it should be for somebody who's currently sitting around the minus 400 range. So I just don't feel comfortable putting her in a parlay. I see a lot of people parlaying her and Oleg Shayjuk. I just don't like Chiasson as a parlay piece here. I still think she has a little bit to prove, but this is definitely going to tell us a lot about the type of fighter that Macy Chiasson is, as this will be the first fight I think she sees the most adversity, and we see if she really has heart. So I am taking Chiasson to win by second round second round submission, but it's going to be a lot tougher than it should be. All right, next up, Giga Chikadze against Brandon Davis. Brandon, I don't know how the fuck you make 135 pounds. Davis is coming into this fight after a split decision loss to Kyung Ho Kong. I had Kong in that fight. I'm pretty certain. Glad he got the victory, but it was a very close fight, and we've seen how powerful and vicious Brandon Davis actually can be at this weight class. I think Giga Chikadze, probably has the craziest record in terms of his opponent's accumulated record. I think it's ridiculous, like 4 wins and 40 or 30 something losses, which is fucking crazy. So this is definitely going to be the most talented and experienced guy that he's fought, and I think he's going to have some trouble. I think, obviously Giga, coming from glory and his kickboxing background, he's going to want to keep this fight on the feet, but I think that Brandon Davis is going to have an easy time getting Giga down, implementing a heavy top game and kind of grinding out a decision victory that way. But the time from him getting from striking to grappling range is going to be interesting. I think that Giga does have the skills to land on Brandon Davis when he does close the distance, but you guys know me. I always try to favor the grappler in these situations, and I think that Brandon Davis does a good enough job closing the distance to get a hold of Giga and get him down. So I'm going to take Brandon Davis by decision, and he's going to ground out Giga for 3 rounds. Well, the line is kind of close, but this is a dog or pass fight, and I just don't feel confident enough in the dog in Giga here to bet him at plus money. All right, next up, Siyar Bahadurzada against Ismail Naurdiev. This should be a really fun fight. I am very interested in betting the under here. The fight doesn't go to decision. Currently sits at minus 110, which means that they'll more than likely set the over-under on this fight at over under 2.5. If they do that, I will probably bet the under 2.5 on this. I think that we'll get at least a plus 140, plus 150 on that, or at least plus 135. I'd even take a poke on it at. But I think that with both of their styles, even though they've gotten a decision in the last couple fights for both of them, they both kind of like the Steven Peterson and Martin Bravo fight. These guys want to keep the fight on the feet. These guys want to strike. Ismail is a little bit more elusive with the striking, not the most elusive, but a little bit tries to, not get hit more than Siyar gets hit. Let's just put it that way. But I think that Siyar, he always has a crazy left hand, and he could definitely put people out. I think he has the power to put a guy like Naurdiev out. But I think that Ismail also has the opportunity to hurt Siyar as well. Siyar is definitely getting up there in age. He's never been finished, which is why it's probably, or at least never been finished by strikes, which is why I think the fight doesn't go to decision is where it is. But, he's 35. He's relatively inactive. And I think they both throw with a lot of power. If I were to say somebody's going to get knocked out, it's probably Ismail, but I don't feel confident enough in the one-dimensional game of a Siyar Bahadurzada to be confident that he's going to land that finishing strike. I think Ismail will be able to land that finishing strike, but it's going to be hard for Siyar to land punches on him. I understand why the under 2.5 is going to be plus money. So I'm definitely obviously going to poke that once I get that. But in terms of betting this fight, I'm not going to bet either side, but I will bet the under once that comes out. And again, it's kind of tentative on if they actually set it at 2.5. If they set it at 1.5, I would look more so at the fight doesn't go to decision. But even that I wouldn't want to bet on until it's at least at plus money. So under 2.5 if we can get that. And in terms of an official pick, I'm going to take Siyar. Fuck it. I'll take Siyar by finish in the first round. All right, next up we got Alessio Di Chirico against the debuting Makhmud Muradov, the first ever fighter signed to the money team, a.k.a. Floyd Mayweather's management team, I guess. Let's start off with Alessio Di Chirico. He's coming off a decision loss to Kevin Holland in a fight that he thought he won. Definitely didn't think he won that fight. He was supposed to fight Peter Sabata this time around. However, Sabata gets hurt, and in steps Muradov on relatively short notice. Di Chirico, decent fighter, not the best. Decent striking, showed great leg kicks in his fight against Julian Marquez. I think he's going to want to try to keep this fight on the feet, as I don't think he'll be able to get down Muradov. I think Muradov has the advantage on both the feet and the ground. I can see why he's the favorite. I may put him in a parlay. This is the one that I had. I was going to probably put him in a parlay with Jack Hermansson. However, it all kind of depends on if I get the under 2.5 line on the last fight that we just spoke about, Bahadurzada and Naurdiev. If they end up somehow setting that over under to 1.5, I might look at making a Muradov and Hermansson parlay here, maybe for 1.5 or 2 units. I am picking Muradov to win. I think he's going to be able to get Chirico down and kind of hold him down and maybe even get a submission. But I could also see him winning this fight by decision as well. Very experienced guy. This is one of the few fighters that come into the UFC with more than 25 fights. This guy's sitting at 28 fights, which is crazy. But he's beaten former UFC fighters in Wendell Oliveira and Alberto Uda in his last fight. But I think that he'll have the advantage here. I think that he'll give Alessio Di Chirico his second straight loss. And I might put him in a parlay. I wouldn't even be mad if anybody bet him straight at the minus 145-ish range. Great grappling, great decent striking, but I think he'll have a lot more of an advantage if he takes his fight to the ground and controls Di Chirico there. So I'm taking Muradov by, let's say, decision. All right, next up we have Alen Amedovski versus John Phillips. This fight is almost at a pick of minus 125-ish range for Alen Amedovski. I'm not a big John Phillips fan. He is like the everyday average Joe type of man that just wants to come out there and slang leather. I think he's going to have a hard time keeping Amedovski off him. I think Amedovski is going to try to get this fight to the ground as soon as he can. Whoa, I am not sure what that sound is in the back. Hopefully it's not too annoying. Goddamn. Either way, I think Amedovski is going to get the takedowns repeatedly here. He's going to wear out John Phillips and then eventually get the finish closer in, I'd say, the end of the second round. I'm going to take Amedovski by TKO. Not too much to go into that fight. There's no super technical thing you can really say about John Phillips other than he's pretty fucking... he's pretty one-dimensional with the striking. That's it. All right, next up we got Alex Oliveira versus Nicolas Dalby. I like Nicolas Dalby here. I have an underdog bet on him. 1 unit at plus 138, I think it was. I think overall he's a better fighter than Alex Oliveira. I think he has more heart as well. I think he has the ability to grind out in Alex Oliveira here. Oliveira is still very dangerous, but I think he's definitely fallen off. Losing his fight to... losing his fight to Mike Perry showed a lot about his heart. I think overall he's a better fighter than Mike Perry, but the forward pressure and the relentlessness of a Mike Perry really broke Alex Cowboy Oliveira. And I think that Nicolas Dalby has that grinding ability and that knack to break people. And I think he'll be able to do the same to Alex Oliveira. I think that he's very worthy of a bet above, plus 130. He's coming back to the UFC after a couple fights off. He has that draw with Darren Till. I trust his chin. I think that he won't get knocked out here. He's never been finished in his career. He's taken some big shots from opponents in the past. Even his fight against Ross Houston, I think he was winning that fight up until they stopped it because there's way too much blood on the mat, which was one of the crazier fights. So if you've never seen Nicolas Dalby against Ross Houston, I would highly suggest watching that fight. Blood works. Let's just put it that way. But I like Dalby's knack of getting the takedown. He does well in the clinch. I gotta take Dalby here, especially at dog odds. So I'm taking Dalby. I'm gonna say by decision. Next up, we have my lock of the night play, which is Michal Oleksiejczuk versus Ovince St. Preux. So I have 5 units on Michal Oleksiejczuk at minus 224. I was very happy to get that line on him. This guy is an up-and-comer in the light heavyweight division. It doesn't seem like he cuts much weight. He's 14-2. He's strung together, 3, 6, 9, 11 straight wins, especially after a monumental victory over Gadzarad Antigulov in his last fight. 44 seconds where he just completely murked Antigulov. Antigulov was coming in with such a reckless game plan of trying to close the distance and trying to get his hands around Oleksiejczuk, but Oleksiejczuk did a very good job of landing while moving backwards, and I think that he'll have the same success here against Ovince St. Preux. St. Preux isn't the greatest technical striker. He has decent kicks, he has good range, but I think he's going to want to get this fight to the ground if he's going to have any success. I think he has a decent opportunity at potentially submitting Michal Oleksiejczuk, but I think he's not going to be able to get it to that position. I think that Oleksiejczuk, just like he showed in the Gadzarad fight, Murad fight, strikes very well moving backwards, and I think he'll have success landing on Ovince St. Preux. And I think that even if he doesn't finish this fight in the first round, he'll be able to overwhelm Ovince St. Preux, who has shown a lack of cardio, and his gas tank is very much diminished in this era of his career. And I think that Oleksiejczuk is going to be able to put on this performance or a good pace and striking pressure for 3 solid rounds, but I think it's only going to take him 2.5 or less than 2 rounds. So I don't feel confident in betting the over-under on this card or on this fight. But I truly believe that Oleksiejczuk is going to get the finish some point in this fight. So I'm taking Oleksiejczuk by, I'm going to say, second round TKO. Overarms Ovince St. Preux, shows off his beautiful body work as well. Really sucks it out of OSP, and then eventually gets the finish late, round 2. And that's why he's my lock of the night play. All right, next up we have a dog of the night play here in Ion Cutelaba against Khalil Rountree. I got 0.75 units on Ion Cutelaba at plus 160 odds. He is still currently the dog. Oh wow, the line is really closing. Plus 108 now for Ion Cutelaba. Let's see what the inside the distance is. Inside the distance is still at plus 160. So I think you would be stupid to bet this fight, or at least to bet Ion Cutelaba straight here, because I think his only real path to victory is inside the distance. So I would definitely put the money on the inside the distance for Ion Cutelaba if he's going to win this. Otherwise, a straight bet on Khalil Rountree isn't too bad considering how close the odds have gotten and kind of the type of Khalil that we saw last time around. With that said, I don't want to strictly say that Khalil is now this, amazing fighter just because he showcased great striking against Eric Anders, who, he has some knockout victories on his record, but he's not the most technical and best striker per se. But Khalil Rountree really put on a technician of a performance against Eric Anders last time around. Really implemented his leg kicks, destroyed Eric Anders' legs. And he looked great. It looked like Khalil 2.0 almost. But I'm not sold on it until I see a little bit more from him. Kind of like I was talking about Macy Chiasson earlier in this podcast. I'm not going to base it off of one fight per se, or at least one level of opponent. But if Khalil Rountree is able to come in and implement the same type of game plan against Ion Cutelaba, I think he's capable of it, but I don't know if he will. And I still am suspect about his chin. I think Ion Cutelaba has the power to put out a Khalil Rountree. So I am kind of banking on him to land that knockout shot. But I think he has a round and a half to do it. I think by that point, if Khalil is really Tylil, as people call him, he will have the success in implementing his leg kicks early, and then midway through the fight, or at least 7.5 minutes into the fight, it will be implemented enough for him to really work his game, and Ion Cutelaba may have emptied his gas tank enough by that as well for Khalil to kind of run away with the fight. But I do think there is value on Ion Cutelaba inside the distance at plus 160. I think if he lands on Khalil clean enough, he has the power to knock out Khalil, and we'll really get to see how much progression Khalil's chin has actually made in this fight. So I'm taking Cutelaba. I'll still take him to win first round TKO or let's just say KO. I think he puts Khalil clean out. I'm going to take Cutelaba first round KO. And if Khalil comes back as Tailil in this fight without getting knocked out, then I'll be a little bit more sold on Roundtree. All right, next up we got Gunnar Nelson versus Gilbert Burns. Man, if there was one guy I was on highly before they came into the UFC, it was definitely Gunnar Nelson. I knew about this guy way before he made his UFC debut back in 2012. I was very high on the guy. Brilliant jiu-jitsu, an interesting karate style and striking, that it will make it very difficult for a lot of guys to get a hold of him, but a lot of people have had success with him now. Rick Story was able to get a hold of him and control him. Damian Maia, obviously the better jiu-jitsu practitioner, was riding his back for 15 minutes but couldn't get the submission. Santiago Ponzinibbio, say what you want about a potential eye poke in that fight. And then Leon Edwards, very interestingly, going for the takedown in that first round and riding out that first round and not really getting a finish or not getting tapped by Gunny. I think we've seen a diminished version of Gunnar Nelson over the 7 years that he's been in the UFC, and I think that Gilbert Burns on the other side is kind of on a different trajectory, and I think that he has the ability to get the win over Gunnar Nelson here, and it kind of hurts to say that. The odds are slightly getting better on Gilbert Burns, but I think if it gets to like a dead pick'em, I might make a small play on Gilbert Burns. He's turned it around with his striking. He's beaten more complete fighters, at least in my opinion, in his career against Olivier Aubin-Mercier. The Mike Davis fight was very interesting. Super short notice against Alexei Kunchenko and coming in there and getting the victory over a guy that was 20-0 at that time. I think he's going to have more success here against Gunnar Nelson. I think he's going to land the power shots on the feet, and I think he has the wrestling to get this fight to the ground. And my man, Kenny Florian, he knows his shit about jiu-jitsu, at least in terms of rankings and how these guys match up with each other. And he's saying that Gilbert Burns is leagues ahead of Gunnar Nelson. And I'm not going to say that he's going to submit Gunnar Nelson here, but I think that if it ever gets to the ground, he's going to be able to hold his own, maybe get some reversals, maybe pull a Damian Maia. I'm not sure, but I think even his advantage on the feet here, I don't think he's going to take too much from Gunnar Nelson's karate style. I think that he's going to put the pressure on Gunny, make him uncomfortable, and win this fight. How? I'm going to say by decision. I think that Gunnar Nelson is still very durable, even though he lost to Santiago Ponzinibbio by finish. I still think he's a very durable guy, but I'm taking Gilbert Burns here, and it really fucking hurts to say that just because I love Gunnar Nelson, but I think that he's slowly on his way out, and Gilbert Burns is going to get another short notice victory here over Gunnar Nelson. And again, if it gets around the minus 115 range, I might take a bet on Gilbert Burns. But as of right now, it's kind of a stay away fight for me. But I would not be mad if you bet on Gilbert Burns at the minus 130, minus 132-ish range he's currently sitting at. But yeah, I'm going to take Gilbert Burns by decision. Next up, we got the UFC debut of Marc Olympian Madsen, 8-0, huge resume in the Olympic scene with his wrestling, with his Greco-Roman wrestling. Very strong. He makes no bones about it. He goes into the fight, tries to get the takedown as soon as possible, grind guys out, look for submissions, look for the TKO, but he's always looking to dominate from on top. On the other hand, you have Danilo Belluardo, who kind of has the same type of game plan, but he doesn't have the pedigree that a Marc Madsen does, which is why he's such a huge favorite in this fight. Minus 650, I can't stomach, parlaying a guy that's that juiced, but he should have absolutely no issue here. I don't think it's going to be much more than a grapple fest for Marc Madsen. I think he gets the TKO finish as well. I'm going to say second round, but I think he arrives, in front of his Denmark crowd as well as Danish crowd, and it's going to be great for him. All right. Jack Hermansson. So I did fuck this up. Jack Hermansson is actually from Norway. He reps Norway, born in Sweden, so he's actually not from Denmark. I'm not sure why I said that, but he is representing that Scandinavian scene, which still falls into Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, and those guys. So yeah, sorry, I should say Scandinavian fighter, not Danish fighter, but big spot for Jack Hermansson here. Coming in against Jared Cannonier. He's coming off that big victory over Ronaldo Souza in a fight that he came in at a short notice. So if you remember, Jacare was actually supposed to fight Yoel Romero that night. However, Romero had to pull out. In steps Jack Hermansson, a fight that Jacare Souza probably thought he was going to come in and handedly win. However, Jack Hermansson comes in here, shows off his grappling, his top-heavy game, great wrestling himself, one of the better guys and one of the better top mount guys as well. That's one thing he's been trying to pride himself on ever since he lost to Thiago Santos. He goes, I have the best top game. I need to come into these fights and show it, he fucking has. I think this massive advantage that he has over Jared Cannonier in the grappling realm is going to be enough to get him the victory here. I don't believe in Jared Cannonier. Cannonier can be taken down, yes, and he has a great get-up game, but I don't think he has fought anybody with the top pressure of a Jack Hermansson and even the cardio of a Jack Hermansson too. I think Jack Hermansson is able to do this for 5 rounds if he needs to. However, I don't think he's going to need all 5 rounds. I think he's going to get Jared Cannonier down. I think he's going to be able to find a submission of some sort. I think it is obviously going to be dangerous for Jack Hermansson as long as this fight stays on the feet, because Cannonier definitely has knockout power. I only feel comfortable parlaying Jack Hermansson here. I don't feel comfortable betting him straight. Earlier this month, I did tease out a double lock of the night play type of night for UFC Copenhagen. However, with the speed, explosiveness, and one punch knockout power ability of a Jared Cannonier, it's kind of making me a little bit hesitant on Jack Hermansson. However, I am not mad at potentially parlaying him with, like I said earlier in the night, with Makhmud Muradov. Minus 147, minus 234 at plus 140 is not bad. Maybe drop 1.5 units or 2 units on that, but I'm going to wait a little bit closer to the fight, see how the odds shift out, and also see if I get the over under 2.5 on Siyar and Ismail. So I am going to take Jack Hermansson by 3rd round TKO. I think he gets takedowns relatively easy, and then by the 3rd round, Jared Cannonier won't be able to get up as easily as he would in the first round and a half or so. And then Jack Hermansson really implements his top game, pounds out Jared Cannonier on the feet, and gets the 3rd round TKO. And I think he wins via that. Plain and simple. I love Jack Hermansson here. I think it's about time he gets maybe a Paulo Costa, a Kelvin Gastelum. I know Gastelum's scheduled to fight Darren Till. Maybe he gets the winner of that fight. I think that would be a great fight for him. But he definitely should get a title shot if he wins his next fight. I truly believe he's going to win this fight. I think depending on the matchup that he gets next time around, should be top 5, and that should cement him for a title shot in that middleweight division. But I think he's a force to be reckoned with. One of the most crushing top games, one of the best wrestling in that division as well. And I truly believe in him. I think he wins this fight, and I will potentially parlay him. So that's pretty much it for UFC Copenhagen. Big event for the local crowd there. Big prospects in Jack Hermansson, Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, the return of Nicolas Dalby. Very excited for the card. I'm probably going to miss it. It is the last weekend that us Torontonians can go to Wonderland, which is our amusement park up here, which is probably one of the best amusement parks in Canada, actually. I bought a fucking ticket in August, haven't been able to go, and I have it valid until the end of September, and this weekend is the last weekend of September, so I'm going to try to make as much use of that as possible. So all Saturday I'm probably going to be out. I will probably catch up on the fights later that night, so I will follow up with you guys then in terms of the fights. Tape Index is actually on my website for this week as well. It will go back to Newsom's website next week for UFC 232, 233, 234, whatever the fuck we're at. But until then, you guys can check it out, MMALOTN.ca/tape-index. As well, you guys can find all my picks there. And that's about it. I got to get the fuck to the gym because it closes very soon. And I'm trying to stay on this fucking schedule of Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and then a cardio day in there somewhere. And today is Wednesday, so it is the beginning of my workout week. Can't miss today. All right, I'm done. We're through. I'm out. Peace.